Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Consent Decrees Monitoring Team Facebook Live session. So we're here to answer any questions you may have, any progress you want to know about with the consent decree, if you want to talk about the recent youth policy on interrogations of youth, policy 1207, chime in. We got lead monitor Ken Thompson here to answer all your questions.
Or try.
and I'll be here just to kind of be the pet squad and the cheat sheets. I'll answer the questions.
You'll deal with interrogation.
So Ken, you want to start with an update on where we are and what's been going on?
I'm happy to. Well, you know, there are a lot of things going on, and I could pick any one point in time, and could probably spend the rest of the evening talking about it. But let me talk about a couple of things that I think are worth discussing. We have recently completed the use of force training, which to me is incredibly important because I've always viewed there's three areas that I look at as being incredibly important in this consent decree. One, of course, is how you deal with police officers who engage in misconduct. But the other two areas that I look at very carefully would be use of force and stop, searches, and arrests. And that's because this is where the public, for the most part, has their interactions with the public. And so I think by all accounts, DOJ, BPD, and the monitoring team have come up with a very good training scenario. I think the officers, for the most part, there's certainly some criticism of it, but from what I've heard, most are pretty comfortable with this, with the scenario-based training. It's adult learning, and so I'm very happy to report that I think we've made some progress along those lines. The other thing that I think the public should know about, we are still in the early stages of this process, but we are beginning to do some early assessments. What I mean by that, there are certain things in the consent decree where at this stage we're supposed to be doing some what I call baseline assessments so that we have some idea as to where we are today, so that when we come back in 2 years, we can figure out whether the policies that we put in place, whether the training we put in place are making the kind of impact that everyone hoped they would make when these policies and this training was put in place. And so these are not necessarily what I would say quantitative assessments. These are qualitative assessments, and all I mean by that is these assessments are designed to kind of give a view of how things look right now. So I expect sometime this week I'll get a chance to see what we've been doing in the area of misconduct, and of course I think the next area that we will be looking at is use of force. So in addition to the training, I think we'll also have some baseline assessments that we can begin to look at. So with that, Ray, I want to open to questions.
Okay, so we're here. I'll fill you in on some of the things that's been going on while we're waiting for questions to come in. We just a couple of days ago, actually, Deputy Monitor Seth Rosenthal and myself met with the National Association of Social Workers and did a presentation on the consent decree and how they can be involved in helping inform the process. So we've been working with them now for almost 3 months. They've come to a couple of, they've come to the quarterly forum, they've come to the court hearing, they've come to just our general community meetings just to see how we engage and see the parts that's missing. And because of their clientele and the need throughout this consent decree implementation process for trauma-informed as well as a community-informed process, they're looking for ways that they can help influence the implementation of this process by engaging their clientele in ways of resolution and just using their stories as a way of healing.
One of the big things that, again, is in the works, I won't say it's in raw form, but it's in draft form. It needs some work, and there's a collaboration period, which simply means DOJ, the monitoring team, and BPD are kind of looking at the draft, but it's the community policing plan, which I think ultimately is going to be a pretty critical foundational piece for the hopeful success of what happens in the consent decree. The whole idea is that, you know, we're trying to reform this police department so that it becomes a constitutional police department. And from our perspective, that means that it's a police department that partners with the community, not just in terms of engagement, but also in terms of figuring out as a partner, you know, the best way to address the crime issues in a particular neighborhood or precinct, and other ways of just making sure that quality of life in this city, especially where police have some input, can improve. And so this plan is well on its way. It needs some work. Hopefully, I think it's, I don't remember now exactly when it's due, but I think it's toward the end of the year. Of what, December? November. I think then it goes up for a second comment period. But the bottom line is we expect to see this plan in place. Hopefully the public, as you all are reviewing it, you're providing input, and this is extremely important, and I say this every chance I get. This is a very transparent process. It's very important to the monitoring team that we hear from the public, because for us, you know, we're not gonna get good policies, we're not gonna get good training, we're not gonna get good plans unless we hear from the public. And so this is your opportunity to provide input. Believe me, we take it seriously. Those of you who have helped out on policies over the last year or year and a half, I think many of you have seen some of your recommendations included in these new policies, and I can assure you we will certainly seriously consider whatever we hear in terms of the community policing plan. So please take time to look at it, and please take time to provide some input.
And just to speak on that, like Ken said, this community policing plan that gets released for public comment on November the 25th, even though we've heard a lot about plans in the media and from different people, this is the community policing plan that then becomes under the purview of the court and then the consent decree. So right now we're working on creating a collaborative workshop. So we're gonna try to work with the Campaign for Justice, Safety, and Jobs next month to do one of their policy working workshops, and we wanna make sure that we have all the parties of the consent decree accessible. We're just waiting for confirmations, but we wanna be able to kind of document this feedback in real time and make sure that things presented in this community type setting don't get lost in translation, and participate in smaller group conversations with residents, so we can ensure the public that we are participating in this process and we are doing everything to continue to move this process forward.
Come on, folks, don't be shy.
What are the actual physical ways that you can reply to the consent decree? Go to a website? Is there a phone number I can call if I need help? If I'm a senior citizen and I don't have a computer, how do I access this information?
I have the monitor hotline number, but there's definitely the BPD Monitor website, bpdmonitor.com. You can email directly to info@bpdmonitor.com. The Baltimore City also has what they call their transparency website, where they post all the policies as well, and you can leave public comment right through that link. I dare to say that you can deliver them. I've done it multiple times, deliver public comment directly to the Venable office.
You can.
And it gets on the record and it's in the docket, but you can actually, and what's the address,
750 East Pratt Street.
750 East Pratt Street. You can hand deliver it. You could come to either of our offices, 3333 Greenmount Avenue, and drop it off, or 1546 North Fremont Avenue in West Baltimore to drop those off, or you can contact one of your neighborhood liaisons at the districts, where there are multiple ways. We need to make sure we're opening every channel. So we don't wanna limit our access, and we actually wanna expand access. So if people out there have newer or innovative ideas on how we can collect this feedback and input from the community, please share it with the monitoring team. We're open to that as well.
Can you repeat the phone number again?
I did not say the phone number because I do not have one of y'all fellas.
Tell you what we'll do, we will put it on our social networks.
Yes, Jess, could you put it in the comments?
Yeah, cause I'm thinking, there's senior citizens who they're not able to get out. They're not able to go downtown. For one reason, our transit system is not great. But there may be a different way of them, for us to go to their community centers, as well as go to their buildings. And I've been attending, one of the meetings at one of the senior buildings. And so we need to make things accessible to them as well. And I'm getting complaints from senior citizens because they don't have access to the internet.
Right.
So we have to find another way of reaching them.
I agree, and I just
Ray has some info, but let me follow up on something real quick, because, I don't want it to go without folks paying close attention. We are always interested in hearing from you guys in terms of other ways that we can communicate. We don't have all the answers. I mean, we're limited. We do what we typically do, but there are probably many more creative ways we can respond to various constituencies, and the constituency you're talking about is a very, very important one. And I think more needs to be done to figure out how to address and to have that level of communication with folks who are in nursing homes or in other places where they don't have access necessarily to social media. So any suggestions that the public has, I mean, we're very transparent, and we want to hear from you, because if we can do it, we'll do it. So I'm sorry, Ray, you want to give information out.
So we actually have a mailing address, which is Consent Decree Monitoring Team, care of Kenneth Thompson, Venable LLP, 750 East Pratt Street, Suite 900, and the zip code is 21202. We also have a telephone number, 410-528-4670. And like I said, we're trying to open up as many avenues as we can. I myself, just like Ms. Wanda, we have this issue where we actually have to physically present to these senior establishments, and that's been going on throughout this process. We do have a graphic that I finally got the digital copy of that kind of puts who we are and what the process is in layman's terms. I think you've seen it at a meeting with the little pictures on it.
Yes, and if you can send that digital.
Right, so I did get the digital copy of that, and I can send that out as well. But any ideas you may have, any avenues, channels, connections, we want to try to meet people. We want to get out there. It's getting cold. The liaisons are looking to come indoors, so bring the liaisons into these meetings and let them address and show what's happening in their communities and how they can help you influence this process.
And while we're on this, it would also be real nice if you guys invited us to some of your association meetings. It is getting cold. We don't mind walking out on, what do we call these things we do, the corner crawls, but it's much nicer to be invited to a nice warm community association. So if you give us enough notice, and typically if you can let us know, 2-3 weeks in advance, that's generally enough. We will show up, and we'll take whatever time you give us, but it's incredibly important that we get a chance to answer your questions, as I would say, live.
No questions on the live. Any questions in the gallery?
Thought I heard a phone ring there.
Do we have a telephone line? Well, I think while we're talking, I think we should kind of describe this workshop process where what CJSJ actually does.
Yeah, do that.
What they actually do in these workshops is they summarize the policy, which is one of the most important components, because they take, in the case of the youth policy, I think it was 38 pages, and they break it down into a one-pager so people can actually understand what they're trying to do in writing this policy. And then they break it down into components, and then breakout groups, they kind of discuss that individual component. They take feedback from around the table, and then they kind of take solutions from around the table. So it's kind of not only making a complaint, so to speak, and not only voicing your gripes, but it's also proposing your solutions all in one term. And they actually help you formally craft a letter for public feedback. They have templates for people that don't want to write a full letter. They take every precaution possible. They usually have translators there for Hispanic populations. They even take the time to help the people that are literally challenged and help them formulate their words onto paper so their voice won't be heard in this process too. So it's a great opportunity for the everyday resident who doesn't think that they can actually contribute to the process and influence changes in public safety in their community to kind of come out and get involved and see what influence they have just as an individual. And this method is kind of patterned after processes we use with the West Baltimore Community Commission before a consent decree. And the process has shown that the methodology works, because many of the recommendations that were made in this People's Decree Summit are actually now verbatim in the consent decree. And we have to continue to create that balance, and the policies, the training curriculums, and as we move into this next phase, the day-to-day implementation of the reforms in the consent decree.
And let me follow up on what Ray is talking about from maybe a little different perspective, but more from the monitoring team's perspective. At the end of the day, and I can't tell you when that's going to be, but there will be a point in time when the monitoring team's obligation is to assess whether or not the police department, and in some small respects the city of Baltimore, are complying with the requirements, some 500 plus requirements in the consent decree, whether they have complied with them. We're a long way from that, but part of that process is going to require that members in the public participate and let us know how they are, for lack of a better term, feeling what's going on with the police department. I mean, we're doing surveys and we're doing focus groups. We're doing a lot of things that hopefully will scientifically give us the data points we need to make these assessments at some point down the road. But I can tell you that some of the most meaningful information that we get, even on a short-term basis, is the feedback we get from the public. Now, again, as the monitoring team, we don't run the police department. We don't discipline police officers. We don't do any of those things. Our job is we work for the United States District Court, the judge there. We assist him in determining ultimately whether whether the department has complied. And we also, as a monitoring team with experts, along with the Department of Justice, we use our experts to help the department to fix itself. But this process requires us, because we're all human, to have some baseline understanding of where we are now, where we are next year. And again, we'll have data points in these surveys, which are good, in these focus groups, but it's also important for us and I say this for myself, I need to hear from the public in terms of what you see going on. You know, we have neighborhood liaisons that are the eyes and ears of the monitoring team, but the public are the eyes and ears of this entire process. And so I cannot overemphasize just how important it is that those of you who live in this city, who care about this city, who love this city, you know, take some time to respond not only to our invitations at quarterly hearings and quarterly forums where we invite the public to come and listen to the progress we've made over a particular quarter, but you know, we need to hear from you on a frequent basis, because at the end of the day, how you see this police department is going to determine to a great degree whether this consent decree at some point will be satisfied. So please, you know, take some time, pay attention to some of this because it is important, and we invite you to respond to our questions.
You know, one of the things that you said was that we have no idea when the consent decree will end. Do we have any type of examples from around the country, or any of the other consent decrees? Have they reached a point where they
Some have. I'm told that 8 to 10 years is not unheard of. Wow. I think Detroit may have been longer than that. I don't remember exactly. Don't know what the longest is, but these things all take time. They all take time. I mean, this is not a quick fix. Anything that's, if you try to fix it quickly, it's not going to last. And people have to understand, the reason why we're doing this is to get what we call long-term sustainable changes. We don't want to have a department that decides to obey the law because you got a federal judge looking over them, and you got a monitoring team and the Department of Justice here watching what they're doing on a somewhat frequent basis. I mean, that is not very helpful. Even if you're here 10 years, what happens in year 11 through 20? So the idea is it's almost like developing muscle memory with this department, where they not only learn the policies, educate themselves on the policies, or properly trained on the policies, but it becomes embedded in their DNA so that this is the way they are expected to perform. Or you can always have an aberrant, person that's going to do something, crazy, and that's what you have laws for. But the idea is if this is done right, and we think we're doing it right, then you'll have a department at some point in time, because we're not rushing. We're trying to do it as fast as we can, but we're also mindful of the fact that this is a battleship in a small harbor, and it's not going to turn around, in a day or a year or 3 years. It's going to take time to fix it. But the hope is, and I'm pretty confident that when we get to that point where we have fixed it, it's going to be lasting and sustainable change.
Question. Why does the consent decree prevent the police department from breaking up young people on corners, loitering, and possibly selling drugs?
Well, first of all, the consent decree does not prevent the police department from doing anything. We don't control their strategies, but what we are looking at is, and what we demand is, that the police department perform in a constitutional way. And the particular questions you're talking about, if the police officers have reasonable suspicion to stop someone, they can do that. But you just because they are a group standing on the corner not disobeying any law, you just can't pull up to them as they used to do in the old days, slam on the brakes, and see if somebody runs and drops something out of their pocket just for the purpose of, because that's a violation of that individual's or those individuals' constitutional rights. People have a right not to be unlawfully or illegally searched or seized. And when police officers, they have a mindset, they see, 10 folks that they look at that they think look funny to them because maybe they don't look like the folks that they grew up in the neighborhoods where they come from. If they feel like that guy or that group of men needs to be stopped, and they pull up and do the jump out boys is what we're talking about. When they do those things, they don't have reasonable suspicion they're violating the Constitution. And so that's not a good thing to do. And I'll tell you why that's bad. First of all, it's a violation of the law. But secondly, when you do things like that, what you end up doing, in my view, you create such a lack of trust between the community and the police department. And what does that mean? Well, that means puts us where we are right now, when, you know, folks in neighborhoods, because their grandsons were not treated appropriately, you know, people remember those things. Police officers searching somebody, like I said, on Evanston Avenue, you know, strip searching them, you know, again, where they have no basis to do it, just because they feel like they wanna do it that day, or this person, you know, their instincts tell them, I think there's something going on here, so let me use my police intelligence and stuff. Well, those kinds of things have a counter effect, and it does two things. First of all, I think it certainly creates mistrust, which means people aren't willing to give the police information, not gonna cooperate, and not gonna collaborate with the police in terms of preventing and in solving crimes. But the other thing it does is that, you know, when you get a police department that has that kind of reputation, and this department has had that reputation for a long time, and you take someone to trial, you know, I mean, jurors in this city for years distrust the police, and so people who perhaps should be convicted are acquitted because, and this is just me talking, but, you know, because they don't believe the police who are testifying. You know, folks who should be held accountable are not being held accountable because people have no trust in what the police officer is saying. And so I think that it's counterproductive. First of all, it's illegal. You know, you shouldn't be. We live in a nation of laws, and lawless law enforcement is not an excuse to solve crime.
One of the things that I get questioned about is anonymity. The stories that they tell us, we don't need to give their phone numbers, their names, their email addresses. So can you assure the public that the information that they pass on to us is not going to be shared under their name?
When you say us, are you talking about information they give to the members of the
monitoring team? Yes.
Oh, I absolutely can assure that it'll be anonymous. We don't share. If you tell us as a member of the public, you come to us and you say, you know, I saw Officer Joe shoplifting. Let's keep it clean. But I don't want. He does it every day at 6 o'clock. You know, between 6 and 7. You know, we're not going to give Ida Jones's name. We will report this activity to PIB. You know, but we're not going to tell the source. It's almost like a whistleblower. I mean, we will not reveal that information. So yes, you can assure the public any information they give to us is confidential.
I have a question. Is the Baltimore Police Department implementation unit on schedule with their timeline?
Well, the timeline is the monitoring plan. If I hope I understand your question, and if that's what you're talking about, yes. I mean, the parties in general. That's DOJ, the BPD, the city, because the city is involved in some of these provisions in the consent decree. I mean, we've had extensions when necessary, but I would say overall, the monitoring plan has been adhered to. Again, you know, there are practical realities that pop up. Some things take, you know, when we do a monitoring plan, we'll do it now for next year. You know, you assume certain things, you assume certain things are gonna be in place. Well, sometimes, you know, your guess was wrong. And so you have to fix it. But for me, it's more important to get it right than to speed it up and get it wrong. You know, because if you wait, that's a waste of time. I mean, what we try to do is, we wanna do things as efficiently and as quickly as possible, but we don't wanna rush to the point where we make mistakes. We have to come back in year 3 to fix something that we should have fixed in year 1, and then you got to go back and repair everything that happened in year 2. So, I mean, do we have changes? Yes. Did we get extensions from the court? We do on occasion, but I would say for the most part, the parties have done a very good job of adhering to the monitoring plan.
And just to kind of be more specific to the CDIU, so they have also, as the new commissioner came in, gone under restructuring. They now have a new commander, Lieutenant Colonel Mo Brown, and as she's kind of getting assimilated and they're restructuring their engagement, she's been real open. So I will say that as they kind of restructure CDIU, and there will be kind of a collaborative effort between CDIU as well as the Neighborhood Services Unit to kind of solidify the messaging, so to speak, as they're going out. And she has been more open to collaboration. So I know what you're talking about, but I'm kind of working with them. It's all about the perseverance. Like Ken said, we gotta take our time to get it right. So I don't really, she's newer than all of us on the job. So let's give her a chance to kind of create her own style of engagement with CDIU, but I do think that CDIU as well is turning that corner, and we will see more outreach and engagement and collaboration from CDIU.
You know, Ray raises another important issue. You know, the parties, and that includes DOJ, who bought this lawsuit. I think BPD, because they want to reform themselves. Clearly, those of us on the monitoring team understand the frustration in the community. You know, this department has had problems for a long, long time. You know, a lot of people try to go back and talk about Freddie Gray, but those of us who've lived here know that these issues go way, way back, long before Freddie Gray. And it would be nice, you know, I would love to be able to come in and say, hey, you know, this can be fixed in 2 years or 3 years or 4. I mean, it would be real nice to see that happen because, you know, most of us live here. We care about this city. And we know the disaster or the disastrous consequences of a city that every day in the national news, you know, you see, you know, another murder. You know, they break 300, you know, 3, 4, 5 years in a row. I mean, these things make it tough to live in a city like this. But I'll speak for myself. Those of us who do this kind of work and who live in this city, we love this city. We know that this city can be a great city because it's got so many great assets. This police department can be a good police department under the right leadership. And from my perspective, the consent decree is perhaps one of the most important things that has ever happened to this city, because what you end up doing, you for the most part, you take politics out of who the commissioner is going to be. You take politics out of what the next crime plan is going to be. I mean, we have a federal judge who's overseeing a consent decree, and his mantra or his theme is that you got to stick to the plan. You know, if you got a plan, you stick to it. You don't get the opportunity to switch out in year 3 just because you don't like some things that have happened or you're not seeing progress fast enough. So getting back to the community, again, you know, I understand their frustration. I know why people are ticked off and, you know, why they don't see progress in some areas. But, you know, I'm asking people to be patient because, you know, I am confident that at some point we will begin to see a turnaround. We've got great experts from the Department of Justice. And I mean, those folks from the DOJ are doing their job. I mean, they are in here, they crack the whip. Sometimes they crack the whip too hard from my perspective, you know, because we have to worry about capacity. I mean, how much can BPD do over, you know, a short period of time? But, you know, they are cracking the whip. BPD seems to be very, very open to doing what's necessary. And so if you've got a patient that is willing to receive the treatment, and you've got good doctors that are giving it the treatment, yeah, it may take some time to fix it, but you know, we don't have a situation where you've had in other cities where the police department has fought the reforms. Here, this department is inviting the reforms. You've got a DOJ that is kicking them in the butt to make sure that they work towards getting those reforms. Yeah, it takes time because this department was dysfunctional when we first came into this picture. But you know, they're making progress, and it's just going to take some time. And I would ask the public just to bear with us. It's going to take time, but when this department is fixed, I think the residents of this city are going to be proud of this new department.
And I think that Ken's whole point speaks on the city's perseverance, and I personally kind of can look back at 12 years of police reform work, where a lot of times along that way, I felt like Indiana Jones looking for the lost ark. And then we get a DOJ investigation, And you're like, oh, we done found the ark. And you open up the ark and you find out that you gotta go look for a Holy Grail. And you see a consent decree now, and it's signed, and we done reached the Holy Grail. But now we gotta go to the mountaintop. And like you said, this journey has been ongoing, but our persistence, our perseverance, our community input has been slowly pushing this city and this police department into change for a dozen years. And we don't really have time to stop and wait. If we actually want to help create a safer and less violent environment in our city, we have to keep this work going of building these relationships with our police department and the communities, so we can do everything we can to save lives. So it's a process, like Ken said. He says 50 years, I say 150 years. It's been that type of progression, and for Black people, it's been 400 years. So really, this change can't possibly be done tomorrow, because it took centuries for us to get here. We just have to keep fighting for our equity, pushing for change, and not give up hope.
You know, and while I'm on the soapbox, unless we have the question, you know, the other reality is that, you know, those of us who are doing this work on the monitoring team, DOJ, BPD, and the city, you know, we know that you can't police your way out of this problem. I mean, there are many other factors that contribute to the issues that we have in Baltimore City. But the police are a critical component of addressing some of these issues, because we need a police force to keep us safe. And in order for the police department to be effective, you know, there has to be a level of cooperation between the department and the community. There is no way a police department can come into a city that totally distrusts them, is not going to give them any information at all, and expect that department to either be in a position to prevent crime, which would be the best of all scenarios, or when a crime has occurred, the community is willing to provide the intelligence so that the bad folks can be taken off the street. I mean, you know, that's what this consent decree is really designed to do in all of those different paragraphs and sections, is to rebuild trust between the department and the community. And that's going to take time, because that trust in this city has been non-existent for a very, very long period of time. It's gotten worse at some periods of time, maybe better at some, but right now we know that it's at a pretty low point. And you know, it is absolutely, well, it is critical that that level of trust be rebuilt. Will it ever be 100%? Of course not. But you got to have enough. You got to have a core level of trust so that the department can do its job. And for the department to gain the trust of the residents in this city, they have to perform and behave in a way that's constitutional. So it's a two-sided, you know, issue. Both parties, both the community and the police department, are going to have to kind of, you know, get rid of some of their biases. I mean, some in the community think that all police are bad. You got some police that think everybody in the community is bad. They're both wrong. You know, you got great community members. You got some great cops. But the idea is that we've got to figure out a way where people can begin to understand that this department is looking out for their interests. And that's up to the department to show. They got to prove to this community that they are willing to do that. And that's why the consent decree is designed the way that it is. That's why we're taking our time training on some very, very good policies. And you know, at some point in time, the community, I'm convinced, will begin to see the benefits of those good policies and that good training.
Question. We see bits and pieces of information about the consent decree all over the place. Recently, there was an article in the Sun that spoke to the use of military unmanned surveillance drones, supposedly to record illegal activities in the community. Does the consent decree prevent this from happening? And if so, why?
Let me tell you how it works. there's a quick answer and a direct answer. The consent decree does address surveillance issues. I mean, it talks about technical devices that would be brought into the department to fight crime. And the consent decree requires that if the department decides to procure, that is to purchase that type of equipment, they have to disclose it to the public. Okay, so that's what the consent decree says on its face. But it goes beyond that, because the consent decree also there's a big section on Fourth Amendment issues. And so if the department decides to purchase some technical device, and I would say a surveillance plane, because that's what you're getting to, would certainly qualify as that kind of device. If it implicated Fourth Amendment issues or First Amendment issues, you're daggone right, the consent decree would come into play. And if it turned out that there was a substantial basis to believe that it implicated one of those, somebody's constitutional rights, yeah, I mean, the decree would have jurisdiction over that conduct. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so we got about 15 more minutes. Let's get some questions coming in.
So will you be able to go out to groups? What is the process for that? If I decide I want you to come to, or your representative to come to my community meeting or to my church, what's the process? What do they need to do that?
Call Red. Or call Darnell, really.
Well, really the process is either to contact myself or Darnell or one of the liaisons and get us on the schedule, tell us exactly what you want us to do, and we try to come to every meeting. So you can reach me directly at ray.kelly@bpdmonitor.com. You can also send an email to info@bpdmonitor.com. Once again, the phone number where you can leave a message and request someone to call you back is 410-528-4670. And of course, my number is plastered over everything already. So if you want to just reach out to me and see if I can hook you up with your liaison or come out myself or even get the team to come out for one of your events or something, reach me at 443-527-1871. And we want to come out, we want to engage, we want to hear what your community has to say, and we want to make sure that we are accessible as possible to the residents of the city.
Okay, we're gonna try to get a list and let you know which district is available.
Right. And so something else that I do is I kind of use the CAD list, the Community Association directory that the city has, and I tend to go to meetings that I haven't been to or in different neighborhoods and introduce myself. So that's another thing we're going to start incorporating more with the liaisons, is kind of going a little bit more out of the box and seeing what else is happening in the community. So as we progress, we want to be open to everybody that wants to get involved in the consent decree process. So anyway. Okay.
Cheat sheet.
Is the email for the liaisons is still info? So I'll just run through all the neighborhood liaisons. So we have Alvonia Allen from the Southwestern District, Cassandra Cassie Boykin from the Western District, Pamela Curtis in Northwestern District, Melva Dunaway from Southern District, Wanda Watts from Central District, Kenji Jackson represents the Northeastern District, Howard Roberts represents the Eastern District, Miller Roberts, no relation, represents the Northern District, and Magdalena Sangas represents the Southeastern District. And like I said, you can just email info@bpdmonitor.com and we'll definitely get back to you, and we'll get you on the schedule, and someone will represent or present or whatever you need at your meeting.
And I know we attend meetings, but in good weather, we will actually go out with community residents. If there's a community association that wants us to walk through a certain area, we're able to do that as well.
And not only did the neighborhood liaisons engage in their own individual corner crawls, but the whole team participated in a lot of community events, parades, block parties this summer, where we want to take any and every opportunity to engage the community. So it doesn't really have to be an association meeting where we present. We can simply have brochures, or we can set up tables at your event just to engage the people that are curious about the process. Whatever capacity we can fit information about the consent decree into your organization's engagements, events, meetings, whatever the case may be, we want to try to find a way to work that out.
Come on, folks, don't be shy.
I'm seeing all these comments, but it's Miss Alvonia and Jessica.
Sorry. Where are the people?
Come on, we got about 10 minutes. We're going.
Not cold enough, people aren't home, they're out.
Right. It's a lot of information. We need to make sure we share this video today.
Do we have a date for the next community hall meeting or, town
Not
hall
yet.
meeting?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
We do? What is it?
Oh, you have that?
Yes, it's January 21st is the next quarterly meeting.
So our next monitoring team quarterly report public forum is
22nd,
January the 22nd of next year.
And when is the public hearing?
So that's the public hearing is January 22nd,
Oh, public
Wednesday,
hearing.
January 22nd. And the quarterly forum is Tuesday, January 21st.
Day before.
Mm-hmm.
So the monitoring team's quarterly public report forum is Tuesday, January the 21st. And the quarterly public hearing with Judge Bradar is Wednesday the 22nd at the U.S. Federal Courthouse downtown. And we'll definitely put that information in.
And let me add this, this is one, I'm talking about the public forum, is one that you definitely want to attend if you can, because we expect to have our entire monitoring team here in Baltimore. And this will give everyone a chance to, not that you don't ask as many questions as you want when we have the whoever shows up for the quarterly forum, but we have the entire team here, so there really is nothing off limits. Whatever you ask, we will have someone there that can give you a detailed answer. And so I encourage everyone, you've got plenty of notice. It's now the day's November the 18th. You've got 2 months to get your schedule together, but we would invite, we want to have a full house. I'd love to see the place overflowing, and again, we're bringing in our entire team for that particular forum, and I would encourage the public to attend, because I think that's really one of the best chances you'll get to see the entire team, and you can get very substantive answers to pretty much any question you would have. So again, I'm gonna beg you to try to make that forum. Not that all of them, they're all equally important, but this is one where we will have everybody on the team, or just about everybody on the team there. So I'm hoping we have a nice big turnout.
And just to emphasize the relevance and importance of that meeting, where the whole team will be here. Chronologically, it'll also be the time that the second draft, the second release of the community policing plan will be out for public comment as well, where that's another opportunity to once again engage and address the team directly on a policy that'll only be maybe 3 or 4 days older.
And you refresh my recollection on something else. The other reason why that's a nice one to attend, because our fourth annual report from the monitoring team will have been filed by then, so you will have a chance to read. I mean, some of it's a little, you know, I'm not saying it's the most interesting thing, set that I do our best to make it interesting, but we put out our annual report, semi-annual reports, and I think it's the fourth one will come out in January, and of course, what it does, it basically goes through all of the things that we've done for the past 6 months, and I can almost tell you that this one will have a lot of information in it, because we will have some survey information, we'll have some information on accountability, which is how we've dealt with internal affairs, which is now the Public Integrity Bureau. So I think there's gonna be a lot of material out. There will be a lot of information that the public will have had a chance to look at. And so that's another good reason why, you know, we decided to bring the entire team in, so that folks who have questions, you can get answers to those questions.
You talk about the monitoring team. Can you tell us a little bit about who are the people that are part of that team, who comprise the team, starting at the top?
Well, I'm the lead monitor. I have Chuck Ramsey is my, I forget my title now, but he's like the chief deputy monitor. Then I have my law partner, Seth Rosenthal, who's a deputy monitor, Deron Bowman from Arlington, Texas, who's a deputy monitor, and Hassan Aiden, who's a deputy monitor. By way of background, I'm a lifelong resident of Baltimore City, and I'm an attorney. Chuck Ramsey has been a police commissioner. He's retired now, but that's his expertise. He was the chief in Washington D.C. and in Philadelphia. Seth Rosenthal is my law partner. Hassan Aiden was a police chief. I think someplace in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And T. Bowman was a police chief in Arlington, Texas. And then we have a variety of, a lot of former police officers. Roberto Valenzuela, who was a police chief in Arizona, who handles he's a use of force expert. T. Bowman is an expert in stop searches and arrests. You're asking me, you're testing my memory here. Let's see, who else do we have?
Sean Smoot.
Who?
Sean Smoot.
Sean Smoot, he's kind of the police liaison. Come on up, Justin, because you're part of the team.
You have to share your webpage?
Yeah.
Nola Joyce.
Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, that'll help you, John. 'Cause you know,
You got the names. Yeah.
you can have my spot.
How do you remember where you left off? So you have
Nola
Sean
Joyce.
Smoot as well. Sean Smoot's been a long-time union lawyer and also worked around expertise in constitutional policing, and has served on a number of monitoring teams. You have Nola Joyce, who's a sexual assault expert on our team, looking through policy in that space, as well as helping with staffing and our staffing study and community policing. Did you say Chuck Ramsey yet?
Did Chuck.
Did Chuck. Moving through the
I've
list.
got the executives.
We
Okay.
also have Maggie Goodrich. She's our technology expert. Maggie is sought across the country in order to provide her feedback on systems that best operate together. When we started this project, BPD had over 200 technology systems within their use, but they didn't often emerge or diverge. So we're working on helping them coalesce those to a more efficient practice for both officers and people who are interacting with the BPD.
Got Matthew Barge.
Matthew Barge was the monitor in Cleveland consent decree. He also worked on the Seattle consent decree. He literally wrote the book on consent decrees. He serves as a part of the PIB team in OPR assessments. His team is currently reviewing cases that have gone through the office of, or the Public Integrity Bureau, to see how they've been processed, what practices are used, and how they can become more efficient going forward. We mentioned Tracy Mears as a law expert at the Yale University. She's also served on a number of consent decree monitoring teams and is an expert in bias-free policing, as well as has been working with the stop search arrest teams. Did you mention Hassan Aiden?
Got Hassan.
Hassan is one of our deputy monitors. Hassan, well, you mentioned him.
Yeah, that's okay.
North Carolina.
I thought you had a cheat sheet here.
I didn't get it open this time, but I think
I
that
think
we
that's
covered
pretty
them
much
all.
it,
If
yeah.
we forgot anybody, we're sorry publicly now.
Quick question before you close. Is the Baltimore Police Department implementation unit going forward with the consent decree implementation unity promise sessions Blackwood was held on January.
The what?
The consent decree implementation unity primer sessions was held recently, January the 12th.
That's a Ray issue, yeah.
Yeah, we have not seen any more information about additional sessions as promised.
So, like I said earlier, the primers were under the previous director at the CDIU, and as we kind of transitioned into Harrison, and Shabri Briscoe took over that piece of command, and now there's Lieutenant Colonel Mo Brown, who's appointed over that whole operation. She's kind of crafting what her engagement will be, and that's just like us, for real. I mean, I don't want to sympathize, but really, they haven't done this before either. So this is like a first time endeavor, and just like us, we want to make sure we get it right, and I think that's kind of what they're doing with things like they had a primer, they had focus groups, they've tried a couple of different angles themselves to see what fits. So I don't think that the structure of primer will come back, but there will be future engagements directly organized by the CDIU.
One more question.
Good.
One more.
But
There's a misconception that those who are in the higher echelons of the monitoring consent decree monitoring team aren't residents of the city. Can you answer that, please?
I live in Baltimore City. I've been here, I won't tell you how many years. Long time. So I'm the only resident that's in the, Jess, I'm sorry, and we have two. Well, Ray, well, let me look at it. No, but in terms of the working team, it would be Jessica Drake and myself. And then we have our liaisons and our community engagement coordinator, leader is here, and Ray Kelly, and of course you got 9 neighborhood liaisons who I assume all live in the city.
yeah.
I want to say something. When the consent decree monitoring team was being picked and the opportunity to bring the best in the world to come here to help our city was out there, as a member of the monitoring team, I can tell you that I was excited for Baltimore City because we needed a new day, we needed new air, we needed new ideas and best practices. What we were doing wasn't working. And so I was really thrilled to see a team come together that both had a representative from the city sitting at the helm, but brought what was known best around the nation to our city to give their expertise and so much of their time. So although I understand that it helps to know that we have people who know the city really well here, we also have people who know the policing across the country really well here. And I think it's an exciting time for Baltimore to have these advisors on our team.
Let me add to that. We have a very, very strong team. And as Jessica pointed out, it is incredible. When you're doing this kind of work, it is absolutely critical that you have people who understand the various areas that are being covered by the decree. And we have some of the best in the country. And so I'm very proud of this team. I think we have a good mix of, I'm a local resident. I've been here a long time. I've got a strong tie to this community. And of course I have my expertise from the legal side, but in terms of police work, we've got some of the best in the country. And then I'm very proud to have Ray Kelly and his neighborhood liaisons working with us. So I think this is an incredibly strong team that covers all bases.
So we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Like I said, the numbers posted on the Facebook Live. Like us on Facebook. Make sure you're getting all the flyers. There'll be a holiday edition of the Monthly Monitor coming out this weekend with a lot of different engagements and events that the monitoring team, liaisons, and myself and the different parties will be participating in. And we want to make sure that throughout this holiday season where hope is running rampant, that people are actually engaging in this process as well. So thanks everybody. And
Thank you.
I'll see you the next time.